Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to my virtual classroom. And I hope everybody is hale and hearty today. I hope everybody is doing their revision, doing their work properly, doing all the revision, completing all the work which is being given by the class teachers and the teachers. And I hope everybody's doing the revision well, watching the revision videos, and brushing up the contents which we have already done in the past months. I also hope that everybody is hale and hearty at home. Everybody is enjoying at home. Children, today, once again, I'll be taking a revision video. Last time we talked about elections. This week, I'm going to talk about a lesson which is important for everybody, and it also talks about the earth, the different zones of the earth, the different climatic zones of the earth, that is the heat zones, the major zones of the earth. But before we start, we have already studied about the latitudinal lines. What are the latitudinal lines? The latitudinal lines, we have already studied the 5 special latitudes, that is the equator, the Tropic of Cancer, the Tropic of Capricorn, Arctic Circle, Antarctic Circle. We have also studied about the degrees of these latitudes. That is, the equator is at 0 degrees. The Tropic of Cancer is at 23.5 degrees north. Then the Tropic of Capricorn at 23.5 degrees south. Arctic Circle 66.5 degree north. Antarctic Circle 66.5 degrees south. So we have studied all about this. We have studied very well in a very proper way. The special latitudes are, they show the different temperate zones of the earth, or the temperature of the earth. The temperature zones, they are the different zones which are also called the heat zones. The heat zones depend on how far it is from the equator. And the temperature zones which are at the equator are the hottest. As we move away from the equator, the temperate zones become cooler. The coldest temperature comes near the poles, right? It comes near the poles. That is the coldest temperature because we are moving absolutely away from the equator. Now the temperate zones. The same temperature zones are found in the northern and the southern hemisphere. The climate and the temperature zones has an impact on the natural vegetation as well, children. The animal life of the zone. It also affects the lives of the people who live there. Then the 3 temperature zones which I talked about are the torrid zone or the hot zone between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Then we have the temperate zone between the Tropic of Cancer and the Arctic Circle, which is in the northern hemisphere, and between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Antarctic Circle in the southern hemisphere. The frigid or the cold zone from the Arctic Circle to the North Pole in the northern hemisphere. Yes, it is in the northern hemisphere. Now the torrid zone, children, are the areas which are near the equator, that is 10 degree north and south of the equator. They are known as the equatorial region. Areas between 10 degree to 30 degree north and south of the equator are called the tropical regions. The torrid zone also has the hot deserts and tropical grasslands. It also has the grasslands. Then the features of the torrid zone, equatorial regions, are the parts of Africa, South America and Southeast. You can see here in the picture, the climate is hot and humid with rain throughout the year. evergreen equatorial rainforests in layers, which has the largest variety of land and water animals. And very few people live here. There is mainly a tribal population, tribal kind of people basically live there. Then the features of the torrid zone again: tropical regions which are in the Indian subcontinent and other parts of South Asia. It lies between 10 degree and 30-degree north and south of the equator. Then hot summers are there, rainy months are there, cooler winters in the plateaus and hills, deciduous trees like teak and sal, plant-eating and flesh-eating animals, wild animals, then people, farmers and people who work in cities and towns. They are basically there. Then features of the torrid zone with deserts. Sahara deserts is found there. Mexican deserts are found there, children. There are different kinds of deserts which are found here, which lies in 15-degree north to 35-degree north, south of the equator. They lie on the western side of the continents. The Sahara stretches from the western to the eastern shores. They are hot and dry with hardly any rain. Then hardly plants adapted with fresh stems, thorny with tiny leaves, camels. These are the animals which are found there. Then the population is of tribal people and with some city people. Then tropical grassland which has part of Africa. So this is all about the uh, torrid zone. Then the savannas, they are also known as the savannas. They are partially humid, hot, rainy, summer, cool, drier winters with limited rain, which is away from the equator. Then the area is not very fertile with the large stretches of tall grasses and acacia trees. Both plant eating buffaloes, rhinos, all these kinds of animals are found in this zone. Now, you know that children, hurricanes, cyclones, and typhoons are all violent storms that arise in the warm seas of the tropics. They often cause severe damage when they move over the land. It is a very damage kind of a thing which is brought to the area. Then the temperate zone also includes all the continents except Antarctica. That is, temperate means neither too hot nor very cold. Then in this area, some areas are dry and arid, others have grasslands, and there are some forested areas also, children. You know how many different regions are there in the temperate zone? You can find them here in the above map. See, it has been highlighted here, so you can find out easily here. See, it is going to be very easy for you when you revise the topic thoroughly. Unless and until you revise the topic thoroughly, it will not be feasible for you to understand things. Okay, the climate of the temperate zone is neither too hot nor too cold, like I told you. Then warmer near the tropics in both the hemispheres, colder as we move away from the equator. It becomes quite cold when we move away from the equator. Then desert climate in the arid areas, then less rain than hot zone, and it has 4 distinct seasons: summer, winter, spring, and autumn. Then the natural vegetation is grasslands, which has grasses and acacia trees. Desert has thorny plants or those with fleshy like cactus. Deciduous trees that shed their leaves like oak, beech, maple, elm. Coniferous trees are also found, which are tall, which have straight cone-bearing trees, which needle-like leaves. Then Mediterranean area, which has mixed vegetation in this area. Then we have children animal life. Animal life are adapted to the habitat in the various ways, including hibernation and migration. The northern hemisphere, here plant eaters like bison, grizzly bears, elks, giant panda, carnivorous, all these animals are found here. Then if we talk about the southern hemisphere, we have ant eaters, llamas, alpacas, kangaroos, koala bears, and wallabies. Then people, what kind of people are here? In northern hemisphere, farming is the main mechanized mechanized farming in developed areas that grow large amounts of wheat, and this area is called the granaries of the world. People who live and work in cities, they basically reside here. In the southern hemisphere, nomadic population is basically found here. Nomadic, which keeps on moving from one place to the other. Then the frigid zone. When we talk about the frigid zone, it is the coldest zone. It includes the northern parts of Asia, Europe, and North America, and the frozen areas to the north, Antarctica, which lies in the southern frigid zone. The regions around the poles in the frigid zones are permanently frozen, children. It's frozen completely. And these parts in the hemispheres are known as polar ice caps. Then the region around the North Pole is frozen water, whereas in the South Pole it is frozen land. And Antarctica is called the frozen continent as it is always icy here. It is always frozen. Then the features of the frigid zone are northern hemisphere, which is extremely cold, mostly frozen water is there, strong winds and blizzards in the winters keep blowing, small belts of melted snow in summers, and some parts of Europe, Asia, and North America is found here. Then southern hemisphere, when we talk about, completely frozen throughout the year, cold, windy, and dry with hardly any snowfall. There is no snowfall in the southern area. Natural vegetation. Children, natural vegetation is very difficult for plant life as ground is frozen and almost throughout the year. Is almost frozen throughout the year. Mainly dormant plants, they do not grow. Moss, lichen, berry bearing plants, small trees and bushes during summer. This vegetation is known as the tundra vegetation is found here. Then in the southern hemisphere, it does not support plant life as land is either frozen or barren rock. Very small parts that are sheltered from the wind have tundra vegetation. Animal life, children. The animal life here, we have land and sea mammals, both fish-eating and moss-eating animals. We have birds, butterflies, mosquitoes, black flies in summers, and there are no reptiles found here. Then the southern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, when we talk about, we have sea animals like elephant, seal, different kinds of whales, albatross, which are migratory birds, petrels. These are found here. Then penguins are the region's best known birds, which are the flightless birds. Now, when you talk about the people, in the northern hemisphere, people live only in the coastal regions. Chief occupations are hunting and fishing. People live off animal products as it is impossible to grow crops. And traditional life of the people has definitely changed there. Then southern hemisphere, no permanent settlers. There are no people who are settling in one place. Only tourists and scientific researchers mainly visit those places, including India, have stations here to study the weather and natural resources. There is no specific person who resides there. Now there are certain questions, revision questions for you. You can see here on the screen. Why do some animals of the Arctic region have white fur? Why do they have white fur? Do you know that? Okay, sometimes the night sky in the frigid zone is lit up by spectacular bands of red and green lights. These are called polar lights, children. Now, what are the effects of human activity? Human beings sometimes interfere with nature for different regions. This has an impact on animal or plant life as well as people who live there. It affects a lot. In the temperate zone, largest areas of grassland were converted into farmland as well as towns and cities of people to live. Animals like the mighty bison of the North America that lived there in thousands were reduced to very small numbers because of the human activity. In the torrid zone, large areas of forests are being cut down to clear land for housing or agricultural purposes. In this way, the natural habitats of the numerous animals like the orangutan are disappearing, and we are also losing the smaller creatures and plants that survive in these habitats. The local tribal people also lose their traditional way of life. A wise man in the 19th century said that the earth is our mother. Whatever happens to the earth happens to the children of the earth. All things are connected to each other. We need to think about this planet. We need to think about this earth. So that's all, children. A little recapitulation. The special latitudes and the tilt of the Earth's axis influence the climate of the Earth. The Earth is divided into 3 temperate zones: the torrid zone, the temperate zone, and the frigid zone. These are the same in both hemispheres. Special latitudes are dividing lines between the zones. Each zone has its own features with regard to climate, natural vegetation, and animal life. Then to some extent, the life of the people also depends on the climate and other features. So that's all with the lesson, children. I hope you have understood. You have revised the lesson. Please make sure that you revise it more properly. That's it for the day. Stay healthy, children. Stay blessed. God bless you. Take care. Bye-bye, beta.